Can a melee army work in 10th edition? We'll find out. Hey guys, welcome back to this episode of Dice Club. Before we get into it, like everything, I'm going to ask everybody hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It really does help the channel grow, and I do appreciate everybody who's done so already. Really quick, I know we did this on the last one. I am starting a membership. YouTube was nice enough to grant me a membership thing, so I'm going to start a membership. It's going to be 3 tiers. First tier is going to be $1. Second tier is going to be $5, and in that $5 membership, you will get a chance to win a custom billboard. We will customize it for you, put your name on it, if you army picture, whatever. As long as it's PG and rated PG, we'll do that for you at the end. You also will be featured on my channel for the first for 1 full month, and 2 battle reports, 1 MCP, and one Warhammer for the entire month. Then at the end of that month, I will actually send you the billboard for your own table, so you can have it for yourself. And we also have merch, guys. I know the mic here is kind of folding this all up, but the $10 membership, which would be the third one, you can win. I'll pull members out. You'll win either some shirts. I do have 2 different types of shirts at the moment. The other one is this one here. Nick said we just play for fun, which is kind of ironic that we have to say play for fun, but we just play for fun, not for money. And we do have hats as well, where you saw me and Eric and some of our bat reps we do wear these hats. So you will get a $10 membership if you're kind enough to do that to support me, or support the channel, I should say. Then I will draw the name out of the hat. You can win that. You can win boxes, whatever I can get my hands on. If it's patrol boxes, or if it's merchandise, or if it's like MCP stuff, I will give that away once a month as well. Yeah, with all that advertising and bills being paid, let me use my buddy Eric. Eric's back. Eric, so let's get right into the topic, really. We're going to talk about Angron. So first, let's do this. So let's hit a little lore real quick. You read the book, obviously.
Yep.
I listened to the book. How did you feel GW brought back Angron?
I know, spoiler alert, we kind of disagree on this.
Yeah.
I like the book, but
real quick before you get into it, if you haven't read the book, earmuffs, because we are going to spoil some stuff. Go ahead.
I like the book because I like the tragedy. We watch the Blood Angel traitor slowly kind of falling in, and we know he's going to end up kind of in a bad fate, because no one thinks it's good to be a world leader berserker.
Right.
So I think that drama's good, but I do think, and I'm sure Dave will mention it, in the audiobook, it's quite difficult to tell, and I think if you're going to read it, I'd recommend paper personally, but that's just me for this book. Yeah, and I think they do a great job with Angron in this book. So he's not really a character in the traditional sense. He's more like a Godzilla in a Godzilla movie. He's this force of nature almost, that you are kind of seeing how everyone reacts to that force.
That's actually a good way of putting it, because I don't think he plays a huge part in this at all. It's literally about the Grey Knight and the Blood Angel.
Mm-hmm. And Kostelak.
And the other World Eater general or first captain or whatever he is. I think they did and I'm a big fan of the Black Library books. Mm-hmm. I've read over hundreds of them. And this one was hard to follow, in my opinion. And but again, Primarch came back. We all love Primarchs. That's great. Now, with that being said, how is he in the game? Like in 10th edition, we know how he was when he came back in 9th edition. Mm-hmm. So how is he in the game?
I never, in 9th edition, I didn't bring Angron ever. I didn't really like him. In 10th edition, I don't think I've played very few games where I don't bring him. I think he just does so much for the army. Especially, I've seen people play more shooty armies where maybe you don't have Angron, where you bring a bunch of Forge Fiends and you ally in Knights. But if you're bringing in pure World Eaters, I think he's almost required with just how the army lacks a lot at killing tanks. So we don't have a lot of answers that are high strength, high damage. It's a lot of like strength 6 and around that area, which doesn't, like if you go up against knights, there's not much you can do, unfortunately, just because you're wounding mostly on 5s and 6s.
Right, right.
Angron gives you a solution to that. He gives you that high strength you need to do damage without relying on stratagems and those things.
Plus his 12-inch move, right? 12-inch move. Is it 12
14. He moves 14.
And then can charge right off the bat, dude.
Yep, so pretty much you're always at risk of being charged pretty much unless you're lining up on the very back of the table on the longest deployments.
So when you're fielding Angron on a table, his strength is obviously get there. His strength is actually killing tanks. Does he do any buffs?
He does do buffs. So he can give plus, so you pick him in the charge phase, which is nice because now there was a little bit of ambiguity before. Now with picking a buff in the charge phase, when he comes back, there's no debate about it. He just gets his buff. He chooses one of 3. He chooses if a unit is below starting strength, they get +1 attack. If a unit he gives an aura of +1 to charge or an aura of reroll all hit rolls. Usually the reroll all hit rolls is typically the best choice because +1 attack when you have already a lot of attacks at pretty low strength, hitting on 3s, it's just not super useful. And the fact that you need to be wounded, and as I'm sure we'll talk about, World Eaters are not very durable. I would not rely on my Berserker squads coming in wounded. So that's kind of an issue. The +1 to charge, sometimes you're going to take, like whenever Angron's coming back at Deep Strike, you probably want that +1 to charge just to hopefully make that 9-inch charge an 8 and a little bit easier.
Are those chosen before the battle round, before the first battle round?
So you choose them in your charge phase.
Okay, so you can do it anytime you want.
Yeah, so it's in the charge phase. So, and that is nice compared to like Mortarians. I get to see kind of where the board is, what I really need compared to like Mortarian or Magnus.
Gotcha. Gameplay for World Eaters. So everybody right now, I'm sure, thinks that World Eaters are just come up the board and eat you. That's what they do. Is that the game style? Is it? So let's do this. What is your play style with World Eaters?
My play style very much is that. I will try to keep stuff back because a lot of the issue with my play style with World Eaters is I throw meat into the meat grinder and eventually I run out of stuff to throw. But that's not the only way to play them, though. But I think, especially if you're playing, if you're not playing Forge Fiends, if you're not playing War Dogs, which can be added in and do give you some nice shooting potential. A lot of our units, outside of those two, can't really do anything outside of melee.
So when you're talking about adding War Dogs, adding different things, you're splashing in other factions.
The Forge Fiends are
the Forge Fiends are here, but the War Dogs were splashing in some Chaos Knights.
Yeah.
Things like that. So you're not really going mono.
Yeah, you're going more chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's pretty common because there are so few units in World Eaters. I mean, there are 24. It's not as bad as some armies. But there's a lot of the units do the same thing. A lot of the units, it's all go forward and charge.
Go forward, get a lot of attacks, add 1 to the strength, add 1 to the attacks.
Yeah, so you want to be getting in there, you want to be getting in the charge, you want to get the fight first because some armies, so like Custodes, with double fight first, it's real rough for World Eaters to deal with that just because Custodes are great at killing Space Marine bodies. Custodes are basic Space Marine bodies.
Right.
So there's a limit to what you can do if you have a matchup like that. And there are some armies like that where if they can heavily punish you for trying to get in, World Eaters just in pure World Eaters, unless you're playing the Forge Fiends and Brigands and all those shooting options, there's very little that you can do outside of just trying to maneuver the best you can and try and trick them into shooting at sacrificial units. So like shooting at Angron instead of your Berserkers because he can take the hit.
Right. Pros. Let's go to pros and cons of World Eaters.
So pros, they are easily one of the best. Like they're what Tau are for shooting for melee.
Yeah,
they do. One of the best factions in melee. Still, they still hit pretty hard. I mean,
I'll be honest. I don't know. Maybe Custodes can give them a run. Maybe, but I haven't come across something yet that hits as hard in melee as World Eaters.
Yeah, because they give up everything else to do that. So they are very good. If you want a faction that runs up, does their damage, and it's a very comparative. It appears simple when you're watching it. You gotta be careful because you can't play them super simple. You have to think about scoring the mission because that's kind of key. And that's when I always come on, I'm always thinking about, okay, if I give up this unit when I charge, what does that lose me? What can I score with them instead? And that's kind of the key to playing them, is that you got to think about playing the mission. What are your secondaries? What are you going for? Which
in the last episode, we talked about this for Death Guard, is some of these factions are designed and when they're specifically made for what they do best.
Mm-hmm.
Like example, they World Eaters like to focus in melee, where Death Guard's a little bit tougher and they're focused on kind of sitting on objectives.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to play the mission. Yeah. And 10th edition is different than 9th edition. So obviously, it's I mean, it's an obvious statement as we're doing it, but you can't expose berserkers or they're going to get shot off the board, right? They might get there, do 75 attacks per guy, but it's not really, they don't really do that, but they get shot because they're still Space Marines, they're still toughness 4.
They're toughness 4. You don't have any of the defensive strats of like any space. Most Space Marine armies at least have Armor of Contempt to give the -1 AP. World Eaters don't even have that. You have -1 damage in combat, but to be honest, that's probably not worth it on your berserkers. They're just not worth the 2 CP it takes.
And I think we actually went into cons as we were talking about the pros. We just kind of shifted over to cons, is that they're still Space Marines. They're not durable. They're not durable. I mean, Angron can take a hit, but everything else struggles.
Yeah, and even
like everything else.
Even Angron, compared to some other things, he's only T11. He's got 2 up, 4 up, and 16 wounds, which is a lot.
Right.
But for 415 points, that's not an insane defensive profile.
Right.
If you come up like compared to Magnus, Mortarion, he's gonna fall comparatively easily, or a Knight even, just because that T11 to T12, there's a lot of T12 now. Like any Bright Lance, Dark Lance, Las Cannons, they're all going to wound Angron on 3s, which means that, and that's what a lot of people are running now. So he just doesn't, even he doesn't last. And that's not to say anything of your Berserkers. Like I think the last time we played, I think I had that big squad of 10 and just 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, almost wiped them to a man. Then it was just the Master of Execution just running around. So that's kind of, I think, the big weakness. We're a fast army. We're a strong army when we get to combat, but it's connecting.
It's getting combat.
Because we're not very durable, with Overwatch being quite powerful now in 10th.
Yep.
If you get Overwatch, there's a big chance that you lose whatever got Overwatched.
Right. And going back to, again, make a comparison, because I played Death Guard, he plays World Eaters. The board setup, having GW having us put more terrain on the table, actually is help. If we set tables up like GW wants us to set tables up, which is a lot of terrain, it makes it a little bit easier for these things to be a little bit more survivable.
Yeah.
Right. So the Blessings of Khorne, it's pretty nice little thing you got going on there.
I like Blessing of Khorne. I'm a little bit lost. I'm a little bit sad for the loss of flavor for the Blood Tide.
Right.
But I think Blessing of Khorne is a better rule, just because a lot of the issue with 9th edition is that you would get your blessings, you would get your Blood Tide abilities, but they would be too late. So you would have already had lost enough guys, it didn't matter. With Blessing of Khorne, it's nice, you can get two every turn, and they're fairly, like, when you look at them, the double 6s or any triple 4+, it looks hard, but between rerolls from icons, the favor of Khorne, which I think most World Eater armies want, not just to bring Angron back, but just because some of their abilities, you want the ability that you need to come when you need it. And just the reliability of saying, even with the nerf that you can only do it once per battle round, I believe now, that ability to just say, I don't have what I need, let's go again, before your rerolls is very powerful.
Right. And so everybody knows who might be watching this, Blessing of Corn is roll 8 dice, and on triples.
So it's any double can get you either 2 buffs. It can either give you +2 to the move or a 6-up Feel No Pain. I need to look because I don't have the numbers memorized. If you have a double 3+, you can get sustain hits 1.
Right.
If you have a double 4+ or any triple, you can get on a 4+ fight on death. And then the last 2, a double 5 or any triple is lethal hits. And then double 6 or triple 4+ is advance and charge, which is the most difficult of them. But I would say outside of the first turn, you probably are going to use it one of the least. In my experience, typically with that one, it looks awesome. It looks like, oh, I'm going to want this every turn. I love advance and charging when I don't have guns.
Right.
But in reality, because you move so quick, with the +2 to move is usually outside of first turn where you need to make those charges across the board. The +2 move is enough to get you onto objectives, to do your actions and score the points.
And it's nice when Angron dies, and then you bring him back.
Yeah, and I love that this edition because it's no longer last edition. You took away your army roll partially to bring him back. In this edition, because it's not an actual favor, because it's a data sheet rule, he comes back, and then you still get 2 other buffs.
Right, which is nice.
Yeah, and it's probably going to end up being like the +2 move and the 6-up Feel No Pain, but those are still awesome things to have on your army.
And for those who think that rolling 3 6s on 8 dice is hard to do, it's happened in every game me and Eric's played where I've killed Angron. He's came back every time. So it's not hard to do. I'm just telling you right now. So we have units that everybody sees. We see Exalted Ape-Bound, we see Berserkers, we see Angron, we see Lord Imlakatus. We see all the main units that on the table for world leaders all the time. But what are some overrated? What's the most overrated, in your opinion? The most overrated unit in that index?
It breaks my heart because I'm not sure exactly what we'd call overrated.
Overrated means that too high of points. The points are too high, and for what he does on the table.
This is gonna break my heart. I think Berserkers, honestly, outside of carrying the Master of Execution, I don't think they do their points, especially compared to other. Like I also have some Thousand Suns, and when I look at my Thousand Suns, Rubric Marines cost 95 points.
Right.
And I can put 5 Flamers on that squad, which then they're doing decent damage. They give me a Cabal point. Berserkers, on the other hand, cost 115 points. And they are...
This is for a unit of 5.
Yeah, unit 5 for both of them. A unit of just 5, even with the Eviscerator, aren't going to kill that much. Just because of being 1 AP, it's mostly 1 damage. Even the Eviscerator is only 2 AP. So it's just not enough to get really damaged through. I like them. I wish they were better. But honestly, I'm playing the same list as I usually have today.
Right.
But my list, I'm debating dropping all but my 10-man. Because if you don't bring them in a squad of 10, I just don't think they do damage ever.
Right. Well, you can also use them to score. I mean, we talked about it earlier. You got to still play the mission. And for 115 points, I mean, the problem, so 115 point drone or blade hauler is toughness 10, toughness 9, or whatever it is, 10 wounds. Can run around the board, do a lot of things. Toughness 4, 115, 120 point.
115.
10 if I'm only using a 5-man unit. Toughness 4, 115 points.
3 up, no invuln.
5 wounds or 10 wounds. Not great, but
yeah. I mean, I don't think they're necessarily bad.
Just overrated.
Yeah,
We're just saying overrated.
I think they could go down in points. I think they are a bit overcosted. I don't think it's a crazy amount. Like, I think 100 points. I think I would like Berserkers at.
Fair.
Just because right now, and for the list I'm currently in the process of building, I'm looking at, I've got, in the past, I've played 1 10-man, 2 5-mans.
Well, the other issue, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I got to stop. The other issue is that Jackals, which are, what's the number on them?
They've got 6-up save, they're T3.
What's the
75 points.
So 75 points,
Mm-hmm.
a unit of 10-man Jackals can do what your 115 point Berserkers can do as far as scoring.
Yeah.
As far as playing the mission.
They're better at playing the mission because, well, they do have worse leadership, but they have the same OC and they have more bodies.
Right.
So if I need to body someone just off an objective, just sit on it.
Right.
They're probably the better one, and they sticky objectives.
Yeah, and there's 75 points.
Yes.
Which leads me to this, Eric. What is the most underrated? What's the most underrated unit in the index that you think?
I think, and I've gotten an argument before. I think it was with Rob. And I actually really like.
Rob, why are you arguing with people, man?
He just doesn't like him as much as I do. I really like Exalted 8-Bound. Just because they're infantry, they can get the 5-up Feel No Pain, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. Just because a 6-up, sometimes you don't get on a unit. But that's to be expected. But the 5-up Feel No Pain, you can reliably roll that on a unit.
What's the point cost, Eric?
They're 180 for 3 guys.
180 for 3 guys. What's the strength?
Strength 14. On the charge, it goes to 15.
What's the toughness? I'm sorry.
6.
6. So that's not. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
3 wounds each.
3 wounds apiece.
Yeah, they're not bad.
With a 5-up Feel No Pain, and they can possibly stop you from falling back. So they have roll leadership if you fail, you're stuck in combat. Which for some armies, I mean, if you can tag multiple things, especially like with guard, if you can tag multiple guard units and just hit one, kill it, and then you're with another 2, well, now you've got to roll 2 leaderships and not fail either.
Right.
Which is not always the easiest thing to do.
All right, let's look at strats. We kind of cover what world leaders do.
Mm-hmm.
Strats. So we have Gory Massacre. How do you feel about, like, what strats do you focus on? What strats do you build for? I don't know if you know them off the top of your head, but
I don't remember their names. But the ones that I really like are, well, if you're running Angron, I forget what it's called. I believe it's Skulls for the Skull Throne. It's the one where you get the roll after you kill a unit in combat. You roll a Blood Tide roll, and you get to pick, a favorite corn roll, and you get to pick 1 favorite corn buff.
That is, I don't have that one. You have to look that one up.
All right, give me 1 moment. Stratagems, Skull for the wrong one.
Blood for the Blood God.
Yes, but for the Blood God.
For the Blood God.
Yeah, so I really like that one just because, especially with my list, because I think Angron's important, and I think if you have him, you need to build around him. If you lose Angron, well, it's easier to bring him back on 3 rolls. And why I've always brought him back, because we haven't played, I think, since Favorite Corn got changed. That would allow you to make 4 rolls a turn looking for 3 6s.
Yeah, that's true.
And that makes it quite easier to bring him back. The other one is Glory Massacre. Or no, not that one. Sorry. For the Skull Throne. That's the one I was thinking of. +1 the wound, character, monster, vehicle.
Yep.
So our issue with World Eaters, especially with Berserkers, is the middling strength. The fact that it's all like strength 6, which it wounds a Rhino on a 5 and it wounds a Knight on a 6, isn't great. Especially when you're paying that much. And for those units, it helps just pretty much any unit wants to get +1 to wound. And it's against most units in the game, because most units are either a character, so they have a character in the unit, they're a monster, or they're a vehicle.
Exactly.
So it's just so efficient, I would say, on the army, just +1 the wound for 1 CP. It's something you're always going to want if you can, and it allows Angron, if he's hitting something tough, wounds it on a 2 then.
Right. So we have also Blood for Blood Offering. Sticky objective after a unit was destroyed, which is actually not bad. Actually, that's pretty good. 2 CP, kind of expensive, but could score you points, especially on back objectives.
Blood Offering's 1 CP.
Well, I have it at 2 CP.
So yeah,
I could be wrong. All right.
yeah. Blood Offering I like. I think that you don't want to be in a position where you need to use it.
Okay.
I think you want to be scrapping over those objectives,
Right.
and you really want to be pushing them into their own deployment with world leaders. You want to be pushing into your opponent's deployment where they have to worry about their own objectives, where you're probably not going to use that because they have someone to put there. But in a shooting army, so like I played Tau the other weekend. Against that army, I said, oh, you killed this unit? Well, I'm going to sticky it, and now I've got a squad of berserkers hiding behind a wall. Come take the objective.
Exactly.
So it is situationally good, but I wouldn't plan on I don't use it every game.
We have Glory Massacre. I think we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Glory Massacre. For the Blood God. Khorne's Cursed. Right.
Actually,
Khorne is not.
We didn't talk about Glory Massacre. So Glory Massacre. So I'm going to go back.
Go ahead.
Glory Massacre looks great, but in my experience, if that's the 6th inch, you take a Battle Shock. It's very situational. I have used it before, just because I really need someone to fail being on an objective in a turn in their turn, but it's not always what you want.
So what it is a unit after after a unit was destroyed in the fight phase. If a World Leader's unit charges, destroys a unit in the opponent's command phase, like within 6 inches of that unit that destroyed the enemy unit, you got to take a Battle Shock test.
At a -1 makes it a little nicer.
Yeah. So Battle Shock tests, I think, are right now they're easy to pass. I shouldn't say they're easy to pass because I just failed 3 of them in the game against Matt, but they can change the game. They legitimately can change the game.
I wouldn't call them. They're not necessarily hard to pass is the issue, and with the way that Insane Bravery works, you really need to start failing multiple, I think, to affect the game, because usually that's like the most efficient use of CP is Insane Bravery, 1 CP, I score 5 points from being on an objective, or something like that.
Exactly.
And so I don't love Gory Massacre just because oftentimes with the way that I've seen a lot of armies are running big units, so you're probably only going to be in range of 1 unit. So 1 unit needs to take a Battle Shock isn't a huge deal.
Well, you're right. You're right. I think it'd be situational in some cases where, like I said, like we talked about, just with a lot of this stuff, it's some of it's situational, some of it isn't. Apopolic Frenzy, it's auto advance 6.
So that one's nice.
You charge off that?
Yes, because you had an advantage in charge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. It depends on where you need to be. So I have used it. It's a once per game. It's a starting thing. So like, I usually use it on Angron or some 8-bound turn 1. They go very far then, and that way you can guarantee it's just a little bit more security in your charge. That way you don't have to re-roll that charge roll. It feels bad when you do it and then your next advance roll is a 6, but that's how the game works. So I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you need to plan around using it, but it is just this extra utility in your toolbox that you can tap on if you think that you might need it.
So let's talk about enhancements. Enhancements, Favor of Khorne, 30 points. Roll Blessings, re-roll Blessings, doesn't count as a reroll. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah,
you use it all the time.
I don't leave home without it if you're taking Angron. I think if you're not taking Angron, there is some play around not having it. I have debated dropping it now that it's only once per battle round. So I have thought, do I really want this? Because I usually play it on my Demon Prince of Khorne, who sits in the back with my Jackals, kind of making that a much more durable unit. So he sits in the back with his favorite Khorne, give me the rerolls. If something comes in my back zone, he can hit it, and it's usually not enough to kill Demon Prince, whatever popping in back there. But I don't think it's necessarily the auto-include it was at the beginning of the edition.
Berserker Clave, 25 points. World Leader Modeloni, +1 attack, +1 does that say +1?
So it is
+1 attack, +1 damage.
Yeah, but on the charge you get plus D3 attacks and plus D3 damage,
which could be good.
Yeah, so I run that on typically on the Master of Execution. I like him, especially with his precision and his devastating wounds and all his rerolls on characters. Getting that D3 damage, it feels very nice when you get the 3 and you start doing 5 mortal wounds on a 6.
Exactly.
But I think, and it's cheap enough at 25. There's not a whole lot you can put in, so if you've got the points for it, I think it's a great include.
Right, and Battle Lust, which is a little weird because Battle Lust, it's a heroic intervention for 0 CP, and you can do it more than one time. So the way I'm understanding that is, if you fail the heroic, then you for the free CP, or if you do the heroic and you fail it, you can again do it for free with that same unit.
So it is.
Is that read what it actually
It is.
says.
So it is a World Eater model only. You can select the bearer's unit for a heroic intervention stratagem for 0 CP, and can do so even if you have already targeted a different unit with the stratagem this phase. So it cannot be the same guy.
So it's a different.
Mm-hmm. But 2 heroic interventions is very nice still, because you want to be in combat. That gets you in combat, and most armies don't want to be in combat with World Eaters
unless they're berserkers.
Yeah.
Even though berserkers are kind of not as tough as they should be. So if you could fix them, not that they're at a bad place right now, because I'm not hearing World Eater people go, oh, we're struggling.
I think World Eaters are in a fine place. I think they take, if you want to start like winning competitions, I think you need to add some of that shooting component. But I think there just needs to be a little bit more, I'm not going to say necessarily flavor, because I don't want World Eaters that shoot. Personally, that's not what I'm looking for in my World Eaters.
Exactly.
But I want a little bit more like high toughness models. I want, other than the I forget what his name is, the Demon Engine of Khorne that's super big.
I know, I can't think of.
I gotta look this up. It's it's got the tank tracks. It's got the big axe. That's.
I forgot what it is.
It is a Khorne Lord of Skulls. That's what it is.
Exactly.
I don't want to have to run that because it's towering on an army that doesn't use towering very well. But I want something like Blight Haulers, kind of, or Blood Slaughterers, which got taken out with Forge World being removed. Those guys that could move quick were tougher than a Space Marine. They were tougher than, about as tough as a Rhino, and did some combat damage. That's kind of what I would like for World Eaters, and what I think would really help them, because that's what you're kind of missing. Something that's going to stay around late game and is a little bit more difficult to remove than your 8-bound.
Gotcha. So before we wrap this one up, we got about 5 more minutes. We have not talked about Kharn, the Betrayer. Probably one of the most, I want to say the most charismatic character in the World Eaters, in the World Eaters lore. Mm-hmm. I'm not even talking about on the table, but in the lore, he does bring a little bit of flavor, where Angron is just yelling, screaming, or whatever. That's another thing about this book. It's all yelling, screaming. I mean, you don't know who's yelling, who's screaming, especially if you're listening to an audible. But Kharn in the lore is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Out on the tabletop, does he translate?
I think he's an amazing foot hero. If I don't run him, but the only reason I don't run him is because I want the Berserker Glaive. I think Kharn is easily playable. The fact that the Betrayer rule is now you just roll Battle Shock, and if you fail, a model dies if you're not in combat, is much better than it was. Getting rerolls on a big squad of Berserkers can help definitely with their output.
Right.
The fact that he flat fights on death, you don't got to roll, don't got to do anything, he just fights, is amazing. And I believe he's Strength 7, AP 3 damage, I believe.
What's his points?
95, I think.
3 damage.
Yeah, 3
for 100 points.
Yeah,
that's not bad, because Typhus is 115. I can't imagine. the Betrayer being more.
Yeah, no, he's not very expensive. He's pretty cheap for what he is. He's a pretty good beat stick.
Right.
He can be hit in a squad. He can be in your Rhino, ready to pop out and attack someone.
Right.
So he just provides quite a few buffs. And I don't run him, but I think I wouldn't fault anyone for running a Karn.
And guys, we talk about some of this stuff as competitive, in a competitive mindset. We talk about some of the stuff in a narrative mindset. But if you're a fan of 40K and you're a World Leaders fan, run Karn and run Angron. It's just have fun with it. Same thing where you run Typhus or you run Mortarion. Just have fun with it. If you're a competitive guy, see if you can. I don't know. I'd challenge anybody. World Leader plays World Leaders. Put Karn in your list and see if you can win with them. Build around them. Him and Angron. I mean, that seems like all he wants to do is go in and fight. So they do a good job fighting. Put him in a Rhino, like you said, and get him up the board and see what he can do. I think we're going to be out of time here, though, Eric. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah.
We are going to film a battle report. Probably will be up as long as it goes well and not doesn't get messed up or anything. It'll be on probably in the next within the next week. And as always, guys, God bless and peace out.